Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started on part two. Um, and this brings us to water. But before I talk about water, I would like to mention a few things. So again, the whole gist of setting up these encampments is that it is possible to do it now. And, people are asking me, how do we know when to leave and how do we know when to go? Well, that's why we're planning this. We're planning this so that we can set up these encampments, so that the tribes can be ready whenever judgment does come, we can be fully ready. And it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily sell all of your belongings and, hop on board. We do have trial runs or volunteer things on volunteer basis. So people, let's say if we do get the camp set up, people can come in and they can volunteer for a couple days, a week, 2 weeks, however, and they can try it out. It doesn't necessarily mean full-blown commitment, sell everything you have and move in the camp. There are some, some factors, some bridges that we can build to make it work for smooth transitioning. But regarding water for the encampment, so for water, we need a water source. When I was in Israel, Monty Judah says, where do we know where to go? When the time comes to flee and we all need to go to a refuge place, where do we go? And he said, you go to the last place where you kept Sukkot at. While I agree with him, I actually believe there's a better place, or there are better kinds of places. And these kinds of places, I believe, are nearby fresh water springs. And so, because fresh water springs are kind of like the lifeblood of the planet. It's very, very healthy water there. And the right springs, actually not too far from here, there's the biggest one freshwater spring in the world. It's called Big Springs, Missouri, I think. Big Springs, Missouri. And it's the biggest water spring in the world. So fresh water springs, I believe, is where we need to put these encampments nearby. If we can't find a fresh water spring, then we need to find a stream or a river. If we can't do that, then maybe we need to dig wells. But if we can't do that, then we go nearby lakes or large reservoirs of water. Another way we can tap water is through atmospheric water generators and or dew ponds. Atmospheric water generators, this is something that draws water out of the atmosphere. These machines do. Dew ponds, they collect water and they make a little pond. There's a lot of ways, especially in North America. It rains a lot, so I think Yah will provide enough water. If He doesn't, then it's to test us, just like He tested the children of Israel. So we also need to be ready for that too. We also need to be ready for a lack of water, and realize that He's testing us, and we can't complain and groan if we don't have water. So we got to be aware of that as well. Okay, so drinking water, we have hydration breaks. Continual hydration is very good for the body. We want the highest quality of life for everyone. Maybe we have everybody carry water bottles beside them, or at least we have easy access to water all around the encampment. Washing and bathing, maybe we recycle wash water. Portable bathhouses, and I'll show you the chart later on how that works. Maybe we use natural chemicals for washing and bathing, as we do not want to pollute the environment. So if we recycle the water, we can reuse it, even if it has prior chemicals in the water. Going on to food, diet. So I believe it's wise that encampments keep rabbinic kosher, yet largely vegetarian and raw vegetables and fruit-based diet. I believe Yeshua kept rabbinic kosher. The word kosher, an anglicized version of the Hebrew kasher, is not found in the Torah, and originally it did not apply to food. Its first usage in the Bible is in Esther 8:5 and Ecclesiastes 11:6, which meant something good or something proper. Later rabbinic development now designates kashrut from kosher. Kashrut as a large portion of the body of Jewish law dealing with certain foods we can and cannot eat, and how those foods must be prepared and eaten. Some of these kashrut legislations held by the rabbis are believed to have been passed down since Sinai, while others are later additions. So what are we eating? You can see this. This is the average American diet. I'm not going to really explain that. We know it's bad. We know it's wrong. So we not only want to eat kosher, clean, but we also want to eat healthy as well. It would be up to educated elders who are familiar with the laws of rabbinic kosher to determine whether or not they should be implemented within the encampment. We would have flocks of goats, sheep, and cattle, and chickens. Milk, meat, wool, and leather would be extracted from these animals. No GMOs or steroid pump meat. We need to go back to natural, raw fruits and vegetables, fresh and organic, and or healthy meat. So maybe serve 3 meals a day. Let me go back. Mandatory, maybe possibly it's mandatory to have wheatgrass juice for everyone every day just before breakfast and at midday just before lunch. I'm a firm believer in juicing. Wheatgrass is like, they call it the elixir of life. It's amazing stuff. We would be a healthy encampment if we juice wheatgrass every day. We have an encampment food pantry. We also have mobile storage units. I'll show you the graph on that. Mobile greenhouses, semi-trailer or cargo container storage and greenhouses. So we need to determine how much, maybe we can work out some statistics as far as, calorie intake, how much food is required per person. That way we can kind of ration our goods. I think that we need to do that. But also at the same time, a lot of the statistics in this planning may be defied. So Yah may step in and say, no, ditch that plan. We need to be ready for this. So he may defy the statistics through, number one, Yah's miraculous bounty, like he did in the first Exodus. Maybe through our prayers and his blessings he bestows upon us. He just blesses us with manna and all kinds of food, and we don't need to worry about this. That's possible. Or number two, I think we can also defy statistics through not only Yah's miracle, but also through gardening secrets. And I've been studying a lot on how to enhance plant growth, not only just enhance it to where it produces more fruit or vegetable, but also to accelerate his growth so it can grow faster and it's more abundant. There's a lot of secrets, a lot of ways to do this. So accelerating, enhancing the growth of plants through possibly, oxygen, light, electricity, magnetism, frequency, and special kinds of water. Here's a way we could rig it up in the greenhouses or in the semi-trailers. You can see that there. We could set up, have vertical columns. They call it vertical farming. So here's a company that actually takes trailers, semi-trailers, and cargo containers and retrofits them with greenhouses. I forget the name of the company, but there's a company that does this. There's ways we could actually stack, if we need water, store water in containers, there are ways we can stack it, like Legos. More vertical farming. Here's a refrigeration container. So shelter, tents and retractable portable shelters. We use these for easy assemblage and deassemblage. see, yeah, I'm not going to necessarily read this, but in the Tanakh, there's something like 5 or 6 passages that talk about the children of Israel living in tents at the end of time. And a few of my articles, I got the scriptures in there. I don't have the scriptures on me right now, but there's several passages that talk about the children of Israel living in tents. And I believe that during the second Exodus, we'll be living and migrating within tents. We'll be living in tents, just like the first Exodus. Energy. So, we have alternative energy solutions. The common and mainstream alternative energy, which would be solar, wind, etc., state-of-the-art lithium-ion battery banks. Then we have exotic energy solutions, B, which is stuff like Tesla and other zero, over unity machines and zero-point energy inventions. Regarding camp sanctity, so here's a few aspects of what would constitute camp sanctity. That's number 1, centralized assembly worship. Number 2, laws of Nida. Nida dealing with a woman's menstrual cycle. Number 3, modesty. So within modesty, we have men worship and pray separate from women. I know, people may disagree with this, but it's a very ancient approach. They did it in the first century. Orthodox Jews still do it today. There's a lot of reasons I can give you why it's just a modest approach, but we could save that for another time. Men dress properly, women dress properly. Sanitation. So we also, regarding camp sanitation, physical sanitation, we have latrines and or portable stalls that we can transport. But regarding latrines, possibly dig pits for private stalls, pits located outside yet nearby encampment, washing hands frequently, huts for the sick and the diseased. Regarding health, so we have elders lay hands upon and anoint the sick, so we don't have the sick in our midst. Regarding first aid, we have first aid and emergency medical supplies on hand, always, in case there's accidents. 3 natural remedies that we can use. I know a lot of us are into essential oils. A lot of the women in the Messianic movement, essential oils. I'm a firm believer in essential oils, the amazing power that Yah had downed them with. But oxygen therapy, vitalized water, alkaline water, energized water. There's different types of techniques that you can do to water to make it very, very powerful and very healthy for you. So disadvantaged peoples, people who are unclean and are separated from the encampment, they have to travel with us. So how that works, we got to work that out. Not necessarily disadvantaged. It's just it does pose some difficulties when moving the encampments. So B, running issues, camp separation. C, babies. 3, handicapped. 4, elderly, and F, sick and diseased. Encampment formats. Number 1, part of the encampment should preferably be located under shady trees. 2, part of encampment needs designated space for prayer. And 3, might want to consider physically designated boundaries of the encampment. I can explain those another time. So, Trent, can you put up this was an old rendition I did. I have an updated version. First of all, moving these encampments is going to make us a big target. The objective is not to hide. The objective is to travel with the camp of the righteous, because that's where safety and protection will be. Just like Yah Elohim, he protected the children of Israel as long as they were obedient to him. He protected them in the encampment. For those traveling with the encampment, the stragglers who kind of want to do their own thing, didn't want to listen to authority or whatever, they got picked off by the Amalekites. So, if we are traveling together, there's many times in the Tanakh, he talks about protecting protecting his people, hiding us in times of trouble, hiding us in times of trouble, many places. So, yeah, I believe there will be divine protection within the camp of the righteous. So whether drones try to attack us or whether, government armies come against us, I don't believe that's a problem at all. As long as we're plugged into Elohim and we're doing His will and keeping the camp safe and sanctified, we're keeping sanctity within the encampment, I believe Elohim will protect us. Absolutely. So, can you all see that? All right. So in the middle is the tabernacle. In the middle is the tabernacle. The tabernacle, the Mishkan, is the worship center with prayer rooms. Tabernacle is at the center of the encampment and faces toward Jerusalem. It is used for fellowship gatherings, prayer, worship, and large meetings. The main entrance is at the west end. There will be a tabernacle for each encampment. By the way, I'm not suggesting we set up just one of these. I'm suggesting we set up these all around the world, because the second Exodus takes place from all four corners of the earth. So these need to be implemented all over the world. So it's likely that the tabernacle erected by each encampment will be a large circus tent. B, School of Prophets. So if you can see this, School of Prophets, actually, so I have, on the new model, I have several buildings around here, or tents. And one of them is the Beit Midrash HaNevi'im, the School of Prophets. Essentially, it's an elite, higher learning, spiritual school for certain men and women above 24 years of age. Yet learning within this school is not solely mental, as it will require much commitment, discipline, and endurance to be able to make it through the various kinds of difficult training required. We also have a house of scribes, somewhere around here. A house of scribes, Beit HaSofrim. Beit HaSofrim. House of scribes is in charge of various kinds of research and record keeping. Here, scribes pen the testimonials of the second Exodus journeys. This is also a research center wherein scholars, mathematicians, scientists, and the like conduct research on multiple branches of life, both spiritual and physical. Here we create the curriculums for the lower and higher learning academies. So, Hebrew Learning Academies. These are located right around here. Oh, actually on both sides. It's just schools and tents. Schools where children, adolescents, youth, young adults, and all ages go to learn. I guess our primary education would be from ages 3 to 19. We instruct them in the kingdom education, which is essentially an amalgamation of yeshiva-style learning with certain Montessori principles and several other profound techniques. We promote both homeschool education as well as religious communal education for elementary and high school. Now, regarding the tent encampments, which is what you see on the arms here, so we actually broke it. It's a very, very highly organized tent encampment structure. We have actually guys who their service is to make sure that everything's organized and how to situate the encampments, and they're trained in this. But what we have is micro and macro sectors of clustered tent encampments. And a community, so they're made up of communities. And one community would be roughly around 50 people. Micro sector groupings of a few communities would be around 5 communities. That would make up about 250 people. Then we have macro sector groupings of a few micro sectors, which would be roughly around 20 communities. That's about 1,000 people. Different options for tent grid format, such as, so we have different options that we're pondering. A few of them are staggered, square clusters, corn rows, spider webs, square grid, circle rows, etc. This particular format structure, what you see here, will likely be implementing either the square grid or square cluster grid formats. Square grid versus square structure. Square grid versus square cluster. So square clustering is essentially just you have a couple tents, or you have a few tents, 5, 6, 7 tents in a square, and these are nearby each other, but yet you have space in between each cluster. And the square grid format is essentially just you have just the tents are right beside each other, like a grid. So relief trails, we have these across. You see this here, and here. So if the arms get big, which they have to be, this I believe is kind of the structure that appeared during the first Exodus. And yes, it does look like a cross. But the way it's designed, it is almost necessary in order to have it at this design. And I can explain later, possibly. But what we have here down at the bottom, because the arms, you have more tents down here, you're going to need relief trails, and these are side trails across. And going up here, we have highway trails for trafficking to and from. We have them on the sides here too, to and from the tabernacle and the kitchen, and the storage containers. People, so the highways are actually wider than the relief trails. So the kitchen and dining halls. So we have them. Actually, they're at all four corners. They're up here, they're down here, and this side. But they are planned in service mainly by the women of the camp. Also could be men. Food comes from divine provision from Elohim, like the first Exodus. Also from pantry of donated goods, as well as from our mobile trailer greenhouses. So mobile trailer greenhouses are on the sides here, you can see. And these are the kitchen and dining halls. Plug this in real quick. Bathrooms. So here along the sides, you see these little things here. These are the bathrooms. So male, female, male, female, male, female, male, female, male, female, all the way along. We've got a lot of them, and we need a lot of them. Because we don't want, not everyone can hold their bowels for as long as others. So we need to factor in those who cannot, like children, maybe elderly. They can't hold their bowels, so we have bathrooms very close. That's one reason why you have the arms of the encampment that you do. It's not spread out like a big circle, because you had to have easy access, and the latrines have to be outside of the camp. That's why it's structured like this. You can't have the latrines inside the camp. They have to be outside the camp. So the boundaries of the encampment essentially are these here. Like the cross. Those are the boundaries. So regarding bathhouses or bath trailers, you see these here? These rectangular looking things. With these, we observe both ritual and physical cleanliness. Most of the ceremonial laws, the hukot, require running water for sacral cleansing. We also likely use a mikveh for sacral cleansings. We also have on the new model, we have containers, large water containers, rigged on top of the bathhouses, and essentially it works by gravity. So they're situated atop the bathhouses, and they provide water, and they're gravity driven. They provide water to bathhouses as well as hand wash areas in front of the trailers for the bathrooms. We have impurity huts here. These are also outside the camp. So our bathrooms, our bathhouses, and impurity huts are all outside the camp. So we have men's impurity huts. We have women's impurity huts. We have disease and sickness huts. These are all kind of, right around the same area. And by the way, this is